But I always feel like you haven't quite cemented a friendship until you've had a shared experience.
The ocean is an ever-moving and ever-changing beast.
Kind of endless wonder of what could be there.
So I've got some beautiful blue-eye trevally. It's a deep water fish from off the coast of Tasmania here.
And the challenge is...
Welcome to Foreign Influence.
Thought about it. It doesn't.
We're good. Drama, controversy.
So she was the driver for
love to design all that thing. People who trusted me with sharing their stories. Hi, I'm Alina Reddy and welcome to Foreign Influence. We're in Tasmania, the magnificent Tasman Peninsula. This part of Australia is renowned for its historic charm, natural beauty, and Indigenous cultural connections. Come with me on the journey to explore this incredible wonderland.
Joining us on our journey is Tim Cope, who is leading the expedition, and celebrity chef Paul West.
Possibly can, either up your nipple line. Savory looking thing.
I'm Tim. For me, sea kayaking is something that I did as a kid with my dad quite a lot. In fact, when I was 16, he took us up to the Whitsundays and we did a 10-day trip. And whilst I loved it, I had absolutely no interest in doing more sea kayaking. I found myself as a 16-year-old kind of cramped, wanting to get on the land and climb the mountains. But I've spent a lifetime adventuring, as you know, horseback riding, and I got into rivers a lot in the last 10 years, and hiking, cycling. But just before COVID, I got in touch with my friend Toby, who I'd met many years ago, and we started coming up with this concept of joining forces and doing some collaboration down here in Tassie. Just before COVID, he ended up buying his own company down here called Southern Sea Ventures. For the first time in more than 20 years, I had an Australian winter when COVID hit. And whilst that was really difficult and all of the work was kind of thrown off course, there was that opportunity to travel within Australia. And Tassie last year with Toby was the first time he ran trips, and I was with Elijah. I heard a lot about Katya, but I hadn't met Katya until this year. And getting on the water, I immediately felt this beautiful sense of being in a kayak, what we experienced today, that sensory overload of being next to the cliff and watching everything go up and down. The colours are so rich, the bull kelp, backing into those caves, the mist, the way the light shifts, and then the wildlife. I kind of refound my interest, or for the first time found my passion for sea kayaking, which was special for me because my dad, that was his if anything, that was his favourite. When I was 19, I was studying in Finland and Russia as a guide, and I learnt there about this concept of wilderness, which is very different to here. It's called ERA, E-R-A, and wilderness in Finnish language actually means a place that belongs to your clan or family, be it a patch of forest, lake, riverland, and it's that land that sustains you, rather than a place where humans don't belong. But I had a lot to learn, and on our first big expedition we went into Russia and we were dropped off at this little tiny lake. It was autumn, it was snowing, it was icing over. We weren't allowed to take a tent. We had 12 days of hiking. We were wearing gumboots because of the big frozen swamps. I fell in the swamp, all my socks were wet. I had 2 pairs of socks by the end of the first night. We made a log fire, my mate and I, Petri. We decided that we would put our socks all along the top of this slow burning log fire. I set my alarm. I was meant to be the leader the next day. I'd fallen asleep. The alarm went off and I got up in a kind of a frazzle, startled, realised that my watch was on Australian time. It was about 1 in the morning. Looked across, pulled my socks off, and they just fell to bits in ash. And so Petri and I had burned all of our socks, and we'd broken our axe in the process of chopping up these logs. It was 2 in the morning, and we were meant to be the leaders for the next day. Our teacher, who was guiding this course, came over and he said, in this really thick accent, he said something like, "Don't worry, you are still professional guide." and that became the mantra from then onwards, that you make mistakes, but you're still professional. You carry on, you keep your head up, and so I'm still professional.
Almost.
Be it a one-day trip or a week-long trip, I don't think there's any way to replicate that sense of a shared experience, or the bond, the memories that are created from a shared experience of an adventure of a kind. And there are people I've known for many years, socially or at work, but I always feel like you haven't quite cemented a friendship until you've had a shared experience of some kind, and usually an adventure for me.
Going into a cave, and Tim is going to paddle himself, and I'm just going to enjoy the ride. We have to enter the cave backwards, and the challenge is to touch the wall, the back wall of the cave.
So my name's Paul and I'm friends with Tim. I guess a lot of people know me from a program that I made called River Cottage Australia, which was shot from 2013 to 2015, living on a small farm, very like Tasmanian style life, but on the south coast of New South Wales, growing food, preparing it simply, being a part of a community, living life on the land and in rural Australia. I don't make that program anymore. I work for the ABC, I do breakfast radio, I do backroads and catalyst for the national broadcaster. I get to travel all over Australia doing interesting and going to interesting places. I am also a co-founder of a business called Grow It Local, which is getting more people to grow food, supporting them on their journey to becoming food growers in the backyard sense, balconies, containers. I just really enjoy living in this beautiful country of ours because it's so interesting and diverse and varied and expansive. And you know, last week we're on Ningaloo, this week we're here, and you couldn't imagine two polar opposite places. So I've got some beautiful blue-eye trevally and the lovely Katya went and tracked down some bull kelp from just out of the water down there, which I'm stuffing it in with some lemons, some thyme. It's a deep water fish from off the coast of Tasmania here. And I'm just putting a little bit of the bull kelp in there just to give some of that beautiful seaweedy, iodine-y flavour to the inside of the fish. And I'm going to take some of these smaller pieces here and actually kind of wrap the fish in it. Like a little bow there. Okay, and we're going to wrap it up in baking paper and roast it whole in the oven. I'm going to be eating it in about 45 minutes from now. That should be good.
There's always a bit of something different about a Tim Cope trip. It won't be your standard trip. There'll be an edge to it. He'll push you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but always be with the protection behind you. You know you're going to be safe in the hands of Tim Cope. So he's a true adventurer. He likes to share his adventure with others. We met in Mongolia. For those that know Tim, that's one of his favourite places that he goes to. It was a combination of camel trekking, horse riding, hiking, as well as rafting. It was an amazing trip, very, very memorable. I've been to some remote places. I grew up in a remote place, but that was particularly special.
So today we're going to hike out to Cape Raoul, one of the 3 capes on the Tasman Peninsula. We'll be exploring first the dense forest of the National Park, the Tasman National Park, and then eventually walking right out to the tip of the cape, standing above these extraordinarily high dolerite cliffs and staring out to that beautiful southern ocean. So the weather's looking good, blue skies and a couple of clouds, and everyone's looking happy, so it's going to be a good day.
This spot is extremely special because we're on the most southern eastern tip of Tassie pretty much, and so behind us out to sea all the way the Antarctic.
What do you enjoy the most about bringing people out into the wild nature?
Out into the wild nature. I think I really like how it inspires people not only creatively but the kind of the mystery of what's especially out on a spot like this where you're gazing out to the sea and kind of endless wonder of what could be there, why something does something, and there is lots of science behind how the ocean works and its ever-changing state, but I think the mystery and the wonder is something we lose a lot in everyday life.
Well, I'm Katya. I don't often get introduced. I'm in the background getting the gear ready, but I was behind you this morning. How did I get here? So I spend a lot of time underwater. I've spent lots of time underwater. Went in, realised I couldn't do marine biology because I slacked off in science, and got to university and they were like, you have to go to night school. And I said, no, that's not how you get into the water. So I became a scuba diver instructor, and actually didn't scuba dive for a while after that because I busted my ear and went and fire danced. And so I was living, in Guatemala. I had to be completely away from the water. But I was in Guatemala, and I remember just having this moment on a volcano, and I was covered in gasoline because that's all they had to fuel your hula hoop. And I was thinking, I haven't met a whale yet. All of a sudden I got this, as you do on Facebook, popped up the Ningaloo Reef. And I got there. When you're in the water every day, or on the water every day, the things you get to experience and the intimacy with the wildlife, nothing could go wrong. Going to a sea cave, I've been into many sea caves, but even when you hear that thunderclap, even though you're sitting there and you're like, I got this, I know that I can do this, when you hear that roar, like, whoa, it's full body. It's really cool to see people's faces when they come out of the cave. Makes you really giddy. As I think you guys, when you came out and when you guys went in, I was just a bit ecstatic, and so that's really, really cool.
So today we've explored a part of the Tasman National Park, Waterfall Bay, and some of the beautiful mudstone caves and arches and cliffs of the Tasman Peninsula. We paddled out into a bit of wind, which is always a bit of fun, and around the corner, tucked right out of the wind, in this extraordinary, humongous sea cliffs of mudstone. We got to paddle into eroded archways and caves, the size of humongous chapels, and weaving between rocks and so on. This Permian mudstone we've got here is quite incredible. It's hundreds of millions of years old, and actually was the foundation for what is Tasmania as the sea basin. Anyway, over many, many millions of years, it changed form. Ridges rose and valleys fell, and sea levels changed, and it was only 12 to 18,000 years ago that our sea levels were about 120 metres lower than they are now. And this whole landscape here weren't sea cliffs, they were actually the peaks of a huge mountain range. So what we have now, as the sea level rose, we have a drowned mountain range, a drowned landscape, and that constant coastal process, that constant erosion of waves and wind on this incredible area here has just cut away all of that mudstone to expose these beautiful cliffs that we're lucky enough to be able to paddle and explore. Well, it's pretty extraordinary working on the ocean, working with the weather. The ocean is an ever-moving and ever-changing beast. The weather is working with that as well. You know, every single day, the same ocean you could go and paddle, and it's a completely different experience altogether, based on all of the conditions that change, even to the degree where the animals that arrive, you know, that moment in time that you're on that water, you're also at the mercy of what is around you in terms of wildlife as well. So yeah, every single day that we go out there is a completely new day for me. So it never gets old.
I like the tails. What were you saying about the pelts? What you have to do?
This is one of my favourites, just here. This is called ice plant. There's a mainland version, New Zealand spinach. The leaves are a lot bigger. So the leaves taste like salty spinach. The little yellow flowers taste like leatherwood honey. And the little red fruits are full of vitamin C. So that's them there. And they're a super cool colour.
Can we just eat them?
Yeah. So you can eat the leaves, the little yellow flower, the fruit. They're good and sweet, those fruits. There is a seed in them.
Oh, the flower is phenomenal. You could like soak that in honey and... What is that?
It doesn't need to be, it is honey.
Honey.
Yep. We did do a soft cheese with Bruny Island cheese, and the oil had the flowers in it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is my new favourite flavour.
Ice plant, yep. Tetragona implexicoma. But yeah, the leaves are nice as is. They're great in salads and things. Yeah, with everything. Potato salads, put them in soups. Yep. And those flowers, you can do anything with them. So our seasons are based around the plants and the animals. So following what they're doing, make sure that we're not using things at the wrong time of year and when they need a rest. So when the silver wattle's in flower, we don't hunt wallaby because that's wallaby's turn to give birth, and it just gives us that visual cue to remind us that things are happening